Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of CF 2.0 Step by Step. In this series, we are taking ClickFunnels 2.0 literally step by step. We've already done 3 videos before this. If you have not watched them yet, make sure you go back into the channel or click the link in the description to go back and watch steps 1 through 3. Maybe you already have those taken care of and you're ready to skip ahead as well. That is fine. Step number 4 today is all about a really awesome feature called style guides. But before we dive into that, if you have not subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you click the subscribe button below, turn on the notification bell so that you do not miss any of our videos that we have coming up. We have all kinds of great videos on CF 2.0 online marketing. We're doing contests, we're doing challenges. Make sure that you are subscribed so that you do not miss anything. But back to our style guides. Style guides are one of the features that I first got super excited about when I first started thinking, okay, I'm going to switch over to CF 2.0. So style guides are all about setting basically like presets for all of your text elements, buttons, shadows, corners, all these things that we spend a lot of time, editing in every single element that we add to a page. We can make them the default, and we can change the colors of the defaults based on different background colors in sections that we set as well. It's really, really awesome. In fact, if you ever did more traditional web design, we would do this with CSS, right? We'd create a style sheet basically and say, okay, any headline that we define as, let's just say H1, it's going to be this font at this size, it's going to be bold, it's going to have all these CSS parameters that we set. This is basically allowing us to do that, but we don't have to figure out any CSS code whatsoever. So this is really, really awesome, but I have seen it cause confusion for people, especially if they are used to using CF Classic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to set it up, how it works. There's a lot of the same thing over and over again as we're setting it up. So we'll fast forward through a lot of little details. But then I'm also going to show you how to avoid getting confused by it. Because the way that it works is each funnel that you build, you can actually set which style guide you're going to use. So you can have multiple style guides run different funnels on different style guides. And what I've seen a lot of people do is break other funnels that they're using by using the same style guide across multiple funnels. I've seen people get really confused by loading templates into their account that are set with style guide presets that don't work so well with their style guide. So there's a lot of little things to watch out for. So let's dive in and I will show you everything you need to know about style guides in ClickFunnels 2.0. All right, so in our account here, we are just going to head to start. We're just going to head over to settings, and you'll see inside of settings, there's a section here for styles. So if you click on styles, you'll see in my account, I have a few different ones, and I actually haven't set up any style guides in here yet. So these are coming from a few places. One, they're going to come from my theme. So any theme that you set, which we'll actually get into that in a later video, but any theme that you set could have a style guide in it. And any funnels you share into your account can have a style guide on them as well. So I've shared some style guides into here over time, and they've actually got added into my account. But for some of you, it might just say default style guide. You may not even have a style guide in here at all. So start from scratch, just create a new style. Then just give it a name. An interesting marketing AI shows up on here if you needed AI to create a name for your style guide, right? Style name, let's see what it does. It has no input. Okay, romantic renaissance. Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? But I'll just call mine the Funnel Chats Style Guide, okay? And I'll create my style. So now it exists, right? It's in here. But we actually haven't done anything. It's just going to be a bunch of defaults. So what you do is you hit this little artboard here. It says customize. And note, you can also clone these, and you can always go into the settings and rename them later as well. And then it takes me here into the style guide editor. So my style guide right here, it's going to be pretty boring. In here, if you scroll down, you'll see, okay, these are my presets for different section background colors and the defaults that I have for the fonts on each of them. Pretty boring right now. These are my different shadow styles. These are my different border styles. These are my different button styles, my different corner styles. So we can have defaults for all of these things. So you'll see here, it actually starts with fonts, and that's where actually I would start. We're going to take our fonts, and then we're going to use the default fonts that we set to set some different colors. So these colors here, it's called section paint when you're in the settings of a section. I almost wish this was called paint styles or section styles. When you add a section onto a page, you can actually say, okay, use this color style. And in here, you'll see it'll choose the defaults for all the fonts and everything based on the color style that you set. So you'll see here, it's called paint colors. Let's start with the fonts. Like basically you'll set up in here what each headline default is going to be, sub-headline default is going to be, and content default is going to be. Now, you can set it to automatically scale your mobile sizes. I haven't been a huge fan of this, though. It has given me some weird results, at least at the time of this recording. So you see on mine right now, it has the default base font size for desktop and mobile. I would maybe change it a little bit. Also, here we have the mobile and desktop preview. I'm going to go back to desktop to start. So you'll see here, if I change this, it's changing across all those different paint sizes. Base font 22 for mobile. It might be a little bit smaller. Actually, I'd probably go around here. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to go back to desktop here, and we're going to start with the headline. If we click on the headline, you'll see you can choose the font. So I'm going to make mine Oswald. And you can choose the weight. I'm going to leave mine on bold. You can change it to anyone that you want here. I'm going to leave mine on bold for headlines. Most of my headlines end up being bold. And then you'll see you have everything. You have the line height. Down here, you have the spacing for all the different sizes on here as well. So let's take a look at this. We have letter spacing and line height for desktop. And then down here, we have letter spacing and line height for mobile. And then you'll see we have all these different sizes. Extra large, large, medium, small. So you're going to see when we add a text element onto a page, we can actually say, add it with my extra large default font size. Add it with my large, medium, small. You have all these options. So it's great to have these set up. And you'll see we have extra large, large, medium, small, all on here. Okay. So I'm going to make mine Oswald. We'll leave it bold. For desktop, my letter spacing, I might move it out just a little bit. But then on mobile, what I really don't like on mobile is a lot of times this line height default is set really high. It ends up looking weird on mobile. I'll usually leave it at 100 for mobile as well. It can get really spaced out in the mobile version. Sometimes it might make it a little bit more, but definitely not 140. 140 is a lot. And it ends up giving a lot of people a hard time when they go to edit their mobile designs when that is set to 140. But other than that, most of the default sizings on here, at least for me, are pretty good. Like that's a good extra large. Maybe I make it a tad bit bigger. I'd say that's a pretty good large, maybe a little bit. Medium. These are all good. Think of it, it's a headline, right? Most of the time, I'm not even touching small for headline. I'm going to be going into subheadlines. So take a quick look over it. Also check your mobile version. There's my extra large, large, medium, small. I'm not even going to touch those. I think those are fine. Thing I might adjust a little bit is the letter spacing. Just a smidge, not much. I only did 0.4 there. Desktop, spaced out a little. Actually, I went a little too far with that letter spacing. Yeah, 0.4 for both. I like it. Okay. Now, whenever you're done changing something, depending on what it is you're changing, you might have to hit a save button. Right now, I can go back to my font. It keeps all those. But if I go back any further than this, I need to update before I do. Otherwise, it forces me to discard. Right? So we'll hit save. Then for my sub headlines, I'm going to do the same thing. I like Oswald for my sub headlines as well. And honestly, what you might end up doing sometimes is just have it as a different font. And if you use a headline as a sub headline for the smaller sizes, you can have it as that. And then if there's like another font you use sometimes, like sometimes I'll use this caveat font for like different like signatures and stuff. maybe I use that there for my sub headlines. But even these pretty good sizes, except for me, a lot of times my large sub headline ends up being extra large and large ends up being quite a bit bigger. Somewhere around there for me. I'll make my large a little bit bigger. My medium, even my small, like it's 17 for a sub headline. Like that's like smaller than most paragraphs I'd probably do. So I'll make that a little bigger as well. And then if we check the mobile version, go through those. But for the purpose of this, I'm just going to leave them. Okay. And then lastly, content. I'm just going to make mine. I like this one. It used to be called Source Sans Pro. And recently, it's a Google font. Google recently changed it to Source Sans 3, which threw me off quite a bit. But I'm going to use that for my paragraphs. And I wish it would give us, see here, it gives me more of like a paragraph setting. But you'll see like large, I'm probably not going to use that for a paragraph, but somewhere around here, medium and small are probably going to be fine. So I'm just going to leave those, hit update, and we're good on fonts. And then the next spot we're going to spend most of our time is colors. So colors, we have 3 different color presets here. I'll show you how these work inside of the editor at the same time here. So here's one of my simple opt-in funnels that I have for a free lead magnet that I give away. Fun fact, if you go to funnelchats.com/CSMC-FBF, you can get this free funnel breakdown folder just by opting in. So if you're all interested in that, just enter your email in here and I'll send you a free copy of my funnel breakdown folder for the Challenge Secrets Masterclass funnel. Been getting some great feedback on that, so feel free to check that out. But this is the funnel that I built for that. In here, you'll see I have a section. Actually, let's just add a brand new section onto the page. When I add a section onto my page, I can go into my settings and I can choose a paint color here. So this style guide that I'm set to has these different paint colors. So if I make my background this orange color, any headline that I add onto here is probably going to be white, right? But if I change this to lightest, it automatically changed the headline color. So we can set the default colors for different elements in these sections when we set the paint color. You can even do no background, which mine on this one actually has it set to white, which is no good, but you can play around with these, right? So in mine, lightest background, see the base and the overlay. So mostly I'm changing the base color on lightest background. Actually, let's go back. Yeah. Lightest background. It's a white background color. And you'll see I have these preset colors. So actually, before we even get into these, what I do a lot of times is if I'm using like a branded style for a client, I'll take all their color codes and punch them into here, because these theme colors that we have on here, these pop up whenever we're editing the color on any element. So right now this one's set to this black color. If I want to change the color, if I go to style guide right here, it's pulling these colors from this section here in the style guide. So for me, for funnel chats, right, I use this orange color right here a lot. I use a sort of soft black color. This one right here. I use a lot of whites. And then I'll have like a few different grays that I use for different pieces on here as well. So here's another one that I use a lot. So you can see, I might have some other, just like, I might have a red that I use every once in a while. I'll put that in there. Some different grays and shadow colors. I'll have them in there. But by changing these on here, like those are all set in these paint color presets. So I have to go in and edit each one now. So when I go to lightest background here, my base color, if I'm doing it from my style guide, I just need to choose it from here and it will update for me. Then my headlines, I want those, my soft black color. My sub headlines, I also want that color. Content, I also want that color, right? Any links, any hyperlinks that I create, maybe I want those a certain color. So I'll come in here and change those. Maybe I want my hyperlinks to be my orange color. Maybe I want my icons to be that orange color as well. And then any bullets, let's see, maybe I make those my orange color. And so we're only looking at this one, desktop and mobile. We're only looking at the lightest section right here. And so then it's just a matter of me coming in. Okay, so that was my lightest. Then I have one for light. Maybe I want different colors there. For darkest, lightest and darkest are the ones that I use the most, right? What colors do I want to use? Links, maybe I want orange. Icons, orange. Bullets, orange. That's probably what I would use there. Subheadline. Yeah, it's probably pretty good. So go through each one, make sure you like those presets. So I'm not going to do these middle three. You get the idea, right? You'll have a preset for light, lightest, colored, dark background, and darkest background. Again, for me personally, I'm mostly using lightest and darkest, but it is nice to have those other options in there. So just think, when you have that background section color set to darkest, what color do you want a headline to be as soon as you add it onto the page? And so what makes this really cool is, right, I can have two different sections on my page, right? And I can have one set to lightest, the other set to darkest. And then if I move a headline or a button or a bullet from one section to another, it automatically changes the color for me based on the settings from the style guide. So this one actually has a slightly darker, but maybe if we add it dark, no. Or sorry, did we change? We did change this one, didn't we? We did. So let's add a fresh one on here just to see. Okay, so light here, dark here. It's using the style guide presets. And look, this one is set to medium. If I want an extra large headline, I just hit it and there we go. And still, when I drag it down into here, it changes the color for me automatically. This is a huge time saver if you've ever like used templates in Classic and needed to move things around and drag things to other sections. Like, you spent so much time going into the settings of each element. This does it for us automatically. All right, so make sure you hit update when you're done updating all those colors. Those are the two really big ones, your fonts and your colors. The other one that you're going to spend a lot of time on is buttons. Make sure you have some buttons that you like. You use buttons on almost every single page that you create in a funnel. So make sure these look good. Mine right now look horrible, right? For me, for funnel chats, a lot of my buttons are going to probably be this orange color. Okay. So I'd probably make style 1 my orange button. And you have 3 different states as well, which we'll get into, but we're just looking at this state right here. So we have style 1 and style 1 with subtext. Text color yellow looks horrible. I'm going to change that to white. And again, you could choose the colors from your style guide. And then the button font, I'm going to make that Oswald, my main font. And then the size, right? Like, what is the default size? Maybe I want it a little bit bigger. And it might, if you go too big, it might smush it down, and that's okay, because it's not going to have this limited amount of space on a page. But obviously that's too big. Somewhere around here is probably pretty good for me. Font size mobile, line height, going to be a big one. You can cause some really weird stuff to happen if you mess with this too much. Gonna leave mine there at 0. Down here, subtext as well. You can also have subtext. You can have it be a different font if you want. So I'm going to make mine. Let's see how it looks. I don't even know if this will look good. Source Sans 3. That could be all right. Regular though, maybe I go like light. Actually, I'm going to go with medium. Okay. Line height, text casings, everything. It's all in here. By default, we have border on it for some reason. I'm going to turn that off on mine. But I am going to add just a little bit of shadow. Now, it doesn't give you your shadow presets, but you can play around with these depending on how crazy you want to go with your shadow. I like mine just to be nice and subtle. So there you go. There's the default, but then you also have hover. So we're going to update these as well. I'm going to use this orange color again, and then these I'm going to change to white. I'm going to show you what I like to do here for hovered, and I do the same thing for pressed. Come into here, see it's set to solid. I'm going to, with my orange color here selected, copy the color code. Then I'm going to change it to gradient here. And I like to make it left to right. And I change one side to the solid color I want to use. And then the other side, I'll set it to the same color, but then I'll lighten it a little bit. So then it gives me this kind of effect. When I hover over it, it switches to this gradient. And it just gives you that little effect when you hover over. Pretty cool, right? You can even make the font size bigger or smaller as well when they hover over, and it'll make it expand a little bit when they're hovered over top of it. But that's what I like to do. Now, when you go in here, close it and open it again and make sure that gradient color shows up in your recently used colors. Then you're going to go to the pressed one and you can make it that same gradient without having to like make it perfect. And that is, of course, if you want it to be the same when they actually press. To me, like the press is like 2 seconds. I almost always just make it the same as my hover. Okay. So the only difference here might be it actually did carry over the fonts. So it's just the color mainly that you're changing. Right. And then you can do the same for style 2, style 3 have a few different styles, right? So, you know, my orange color here, I probably use on darker backgrounds. And actually it would work well on light backgrounds as well. But if I had a color that didn't really work that great on a darker background, I might, you know, have a black version for for lighter backgrounds. You know what I mean? So I'd have a couple here that go with my style, but hit update before you leave. And then all the other ones are pretty straightforward. Like shadows, you have 3 different presets for shadows. So if there's a certain type of shadow you like to use a lot. In fact, I think the ones built into here are perfect. I don't even touch it. But if you have different shadows, you know, you'll use a lot, different borders, you know, that you'll use a lot. You can have different styles for all 3, right? So if I know I'm going to use like this color from my style guide at this size in a dashed style quite frequently, I'll add it on here. And then I don't have to set that up every time I want that border around something. That can be a border on an image, on a button, on a section, on a row, on a column. And it's always there as preset number 3 for me. So love having those set up ahead. And then corners, the ones that are on here are 4, 12, and 20. You know, pretty good if you have like a really extravagant one that you use a lot. Like maybe I'm using, you know, like 100 a lot if I want to have just specific ones. Sorry. Right? If I want to have this kind of different style, make those the same. You can type them in as well, right? If I want to have sort of like a different style for my borders, you can do that also. So completely up to you, but make sure you update them all, and then your style guide will exist, but it won't show up in your funnel until you actually set it to a funnel. So let's exit completely here. And let me just check here in the settings. This is where you can rename it and delete it if you want. And then in the in here you can clone it. But if you wanted to have it be the default, you'd actually have to go into your theme settings and make it the default style guide in your theme settings. So it should be in here under styles right here. You can configure it. I could say, okay, instead of that being my default style guide, I actually want it to be this. So now if I save this, any new funnel that I add into my account is going to have that style guide set to it. But in every funnel that you create, you can do it at the whole funnel level, and you can do it at each step. So for example, if I go into the settings of this funnel and scroll down, and actually, yeah, right here, right? So I have it set to that one. I could change it, which I don't want to do because this funnel's live. And then also in each individual step, also from the workflow here, you can also do that in the settings here. And then in each individual step, if you go to the page settings in that step, you can update it down here just for that page. So if you want to have one style on one page, a different one on another one, which I wouldn't recommend, you can do that as well. Okay. So a couple things to watch out for here. If you have this style guide set to more than one funnel and you go in and change something on that style guide, what looks good on one funnel may not look good on another funnel. So if you have, a bunch of things set to those default presets, you'll end up editing multiple funnels at once. So that's something to consider whenever you go in and make changes to a style guide. Also know you can do that from in the editor, right? So here I have a button, for example. If I go into the settings, you'll see this one is actually not using my style guide. But if I set this to style 1, I can override it, or I can edit it. And if I click on edit, it opens it up here. I'm still in the editor, but any change here I make, it's going to update here on this page. But any other funnel I have set to this style guide, it's going to update the buttons in there as well. So I see that tripping up a lot of people, and then they go into a funnel like, all this stuff got changed and I didn't do it. But really, they went in and made changes to their style guide, which made those universal changes across the board. So you may have noticed when I came into this button, the button looked like it was my style guide presets. I just messed it up here a bunch, right? But this is how it was, right? I have this selected, which also lets you override your style guides. I have this selected, but it's still the same color from my style guide, just the font is a little bit bigger, right? And the padding is a little bit different. Apparently, if I go back, it resets it. So I'm going to use my back arrow here. So the reason, what I did was I first selected my style guide and then I overrid it and then I changed it because I wanted the fonts and everything, but I wanted to change some sizes and stuff like that. So it gave me my number 1 as the preset. And then when I hit the 3 dots, I could update it from there. So a lot of times what I'll do when I'm editing is I'll come in, I'll set something to one of my style guide presets, and then I'll hit the 3 dots and override it. And that way, if I ever go in and update my style guide, it's not going to change what I already have looking good on my funnel. And a lot of times you need to adjust sizes just a little bit to make it look great for that specific funnel as well. I can almost guarantee you, like all the headlines on here, look, it was one of my sizes from the preset, but I needed to adjust it just a little bit. So I hit the 3 dots and adjusted the size from there, even though, it's using the font from my style guide. So I'll always come in, I'll choose one of these, then I'll hit the 3 dots and I'll make those updates. And then I don't have to worry about later on going into my style guide and accidentally changing the look of one of my funnels I haven't looked at in a while. So those are some things to look out for, guys. I highly recommend using my method there. Use your style guide, set your presets, and then customize it to your own liking so that when you make changes later on to your style guide, it doesn't make changes across the board in your funnels. The other thing to look out for when you're loading templates into your account, I can even show you this right on here. When you're adding a step to a funnel and you use a template from ClickFunnels, right? If I go to opt-in pages here, some of these look great, but then when I choose it, like we'll just call this test. If it's using if I don't change the style guide right from here, it's going to use my default style guide, right? I could change it to use page style guide or one of these other style guides I have in my account. I would almost always recommend this. If I set to this, it's going to look just like this. But if I don't set it to this, it's going to use my default, which is the one that we just created. And it is going to, it is going to change the look of this page based on my style guide because the template itself is using style guide presets. And so this is using the one that I created, right? And look, this one has, if we edit the style guide, this is the one that we were just working on. That changes the look of this template quite a bit, especially when they're using the paint backgrounds. So see, a lot of people are like, I got this template, it looked great in the template, I loaded my account, it looks horrible. And that's because it's trying to implement your style guide, but depending on how you set up all your paint colors, right? How you set up your headlines, like it might not look that great and you'll have to do some editing. So things to look out for. So when you're adding pages in, use the page style guide if you want it to look exactly like the template you were looking at, and then you can apply your styling to it afterwards. But little things can cause confusion, but they also save you a ton of work and a ton of time once you understand them properly. So spend some time, experiment with these. Again, guys, if you have not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, smash it. We are only on step 4. We're going to jump into step 5 where we're actually going to start editing funnels in the editor in next week's video. So do not miss out. Subscribe, smash the notification bell, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.